Where's the outrage? I'm going to go off for a minute here because where is the outrage? It's been a week and a half, and now we're doing this story. I get it. Thanksgiving was happening and all that, but they tried to hide behind that, right? Maybe this will make it through the news cycle. No, it's not, okay? Adidas didn't cut ties 48 hours after Kanye did his whole thing, right? And they got lambasted for not speaking out against anti-Semitism. This is a week and a half, and nobody seems to care that there's little kids involved in this. I can't speak what it's like to be a black man, right? I can't speak what it's like to be a Jewish woman, but I can speak what it's like to be a father of 2 young boys. And that this type of behavior, when I worked at CBS.com out of a little closet my first show, I was like, I'm going to say this and wear a blue shirt. I got 49 emails saying, maybe wear a purple shirt and maybe don't say this here. Don't tell me this slipped through the cracks when you're getting a court case that features child pornography. It's disgusting. It's disturbing. Jeopardy's got to flip their whole production because of one person said something, but they wanted to be woke and do all that. How many other examples are there? 10, 20, 30, 40 years we're going back to cancel people? But this slips through the cracks. It's outrageous. And that people aren't outraged and skipping work with their posters and going to the courthouse or going to Balenciaga, and stars aren't wiping their Instagram and social media with all their Balenciaga gear is disgusting in itself. Don't you tell me, Hollywood, how to live my life, or you want me canceled, or because you produce something. You're going to go around because Balenciaga pays you $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. Kim Kardashian, shame on you. You're a billionaire. You don't need this company. They need you. And for you to take a week and a half to come to a conclusion, shame on you.
Are you kidding me? Another Monday night, another week. Here we get to do this again, Vic. Are we on 7?
7.
7.
Incredible.
I don't think normal people count their weeks like we do. We're like, week 7, week 8. Yes.
We're so proud of ourselves.
Yes.
Oh, man.
We're so cool. We put out so many shows.
6 weeks last season, 6 weeks. Right. It was really difficult for me. So when it went up to 8, I'm like, oh no. But 8 has kind of been a breeze so far.
Well, yeah. I just think of people like poor old Katie or Kate, or, we only do 3 shows, 4 shows a week, but
yeah,
she's, Anyway, there's other, for people that don't know, there are other people that put on shows on the network here, and they are Colleen and Pastor Sean Carter. I don't know if you caught any of the shows last week. I didn't catch them all, but I caught some of them. And I guess the one thing that I didn't know that really kind of shocked me, I mean, I don't know, Pastor Sean said some things, that did shock me, but the guy met Chuck Norris.
Oh my gosh.
Had a photo op with him.
What?
I'm like, did you know that?
I did not know that. That's amazing.
Yes.
Wow.
So anyway.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Colleen and Pastor Sean were pumping out some great shows last week, talking about discerning real dark news and Sean's testimony, his story, and wow, praise God! What an amazing testimony! How God saved him, used him, put him in youth ministry. Then now he's a pastor, and you see this guy popping up on social media, and he's there in a suit, right? On Sunday morning, and he's doing Sunday school and church and stuff, and he's having a talk, and he comes over here and he helps us out. So, and then when he's got nothing else to do, Vic, he goes out on the side of the road and puts up a tent and says, hey, he flags down cars, okay, and says, come over here, I'll pray for you. Like, you know how the Bible says we're like all different parts of the body?
Yeah.
You know, like people have different gifts and abilities. And then I think it's also not only that, but I mean, could you imagine if I was doing a ministry like that and I was trying to flag down cars? Like,
Dude.
I mean, do you really think they would stop? They would pull over and they would be like, oh, that nice man there, he can pray for us.
Yeah. Yeah. They'd be like, who is this guy? He's going to rob us.
Yeah. You know,
This is
I've
a
heard those
trick.
clicks before, like the door locks click, you know.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
anyway, cool stuff going over there. But hey, I want to while we're talking about Pastor Sean and Colleen, I do want to plug this book, The Lie Effect. I have started reading it very, very slowly. Okay. And I'm not very far right now. I'm not going to show you where my bookmark is, but guys, this is really cool because it says a survivor's handbook. It is a handbook, okay? And you don't have to read this thing straight through. All right. There is so cool because it has a definition of terms that you can just kind of go through and look and say, okay, what's troubling you? It's got questions and answers in here.
Prayers.
It's just, yeah. Anyway, folks, I am barely started this book and I'm really impressed with this. So Colleen and Nancy did an amazing job, and you can find it on Amazon, I believe. So check that out. Don't forget, Vicky Joy's got a book. Vic, let me ask you this. I know when I was making a movie, when I make a movie, I get sick of that movie. Do you ever get tired of talking about your book?
You know, I get tired of talking about certain aspects of sleep paralysis, most definitely. You know, there's the same, like, the definitions and, you know, the kind of the more cliche aspects of it, and the same old cast of characters. And so I try to, you know, when I do shows, to kind of focus on different aspects of it, but you know, you still got to kind of cover what's in the book, because you don't want people to be like, hey, that's cool, and then they buy the book and you don't say anything about it. But yeah, it does. I've had some days where I'm like, oh my gosh, if I have to talk about this one more time, I need like a 3-week nap. Because it's a heavy topic. It's a heavy topic too. So, you know, when you get done talking about it, it's like
topic. Kind of like some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about tonight.
Mhm.
So yeah, anyway, They Only Come Out at Night is the name of Vicky's book, and it is, of course, still available, lamarzulli.net. They Only Come Out at Night.net or com. I always forget. Sorry about that, Vic.
I think it's net. I'm pretty sure it's
You
net.
think it's net? Okay, good. Good. You don't know either. That makes me feel better. I'm sure there's a link. There we go. .net.
There you go.
There's a link in the show notes for anybody that wants to check any of these things out. Speaking of links in the show notes, okay, there's a link to a website called throughtheblack.com, and that's where you can go and get signed up for the conference that's coming up March 31st, April 1st, 2023, Out of the Darkness. Vic, I really want this to be an amazing experience for the people that are able to make it out and come out. We want to see them trained and equipped just to go back and just do some damage, okay?
Yep.
For the Lord, all right?
Yep.
So anyway, tickets are available. We are almost, Vic, we're almost at the 25% mark, and we've only had tickets on sale for 2 weeks. That's amazing. So we are almost through our second price tier, okay? And the price is going to go up when we hit a certain number. So anyway, guys, thanks for supporting this. I am so excited just to see some of the names I recognize. People are getting signed up. Some people I'm going to see for the first time. Some people we're going to see again. It's going to be awesome, okay? So anyway, yeah, come on out and check that out. And then all the info is on the website. We're going to be adding some more names to the list, all that stuff. So Vic, we're getting ready to jump into a few things, but everything going good over there? Good weekend? Good downtime?
Yep, absolutely. Had some great fellowship yesterday. and had some rest this weekend as well. So I'm pretty tired. I got to admit, I'm pretty tired, but it just got about another 10 days here. And then we've got a couple weeks off, and I'm going to hit that big red reset button January 1 and start all over.
Yes, we will be coming back, no doubt about it. Yeah, I am really overwhelmed with work, and I should be having a nervous breakdown, really.
I hear you.
But God is good, and I'm just not going to sweat it. Okay. I was out on a mission on Thursday, and there were a couple appointments that I had and things that had to happen. And in the middle of it all, I lock myself out of my car.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
And I don't know how that happened. It was so crazy. Like, I popped out of my car. I saw somebody walking towards the car, and I popped out real quick to ask this person a question. And my door swung, it just swung shut.
Ugh.
I almost said swang. It swung shut. But
Swanging
it didn't shut all the way. It was like cracked open. But somehow the button was up, but it was locked. And it was cold.
Of course.
And I was like, okay, what do I do? I was in an alley, actually, in another city is where I was.
This is getting better, right? Better by the minute.
Yeah. So
then it started raining.
Yeah, well, it was precipitation was in the air, but it wasn't raining yet. Okay. And I found some boards in the alley to pry my door the rest of the way open and try to get it unlocked, but that wasn't working. So I was able to go in this building, and they gave me a coat hanger. And I was like, okay, I think this will help. And I don't know if it was hypothermia or like my brain glitched out or something, but I had like the door pried open with one hand with the board. And then I had the coat hanger in there. And then I'm not sure what happened, but like my brain just like told my hand, okay, let go of the coat hanger and drop it inside the car. So that's what I did. And I was like, what in the world just happened?
Oh, what was that?
Why in the world did I just let go of the coat hanger and I watched it go in there? Like, I can't go back and ask for another coat hanger, right?
Right.
So I saw a yard sign, one of those yard signs. I thought, well, I could tear that apart and use that. But I was able to get in using a board.
Wow.
I bent my door window part back so bad that, it was making a hissing sound half the way home. And I was able to fix that. But hey, that's just, you know what? I was just kind of laughing and praising God. I'm like, Lord, if this is all I got to deal with, thank you so much. Praise you that this is the worst, that I got to deal with today. So, but I brought that up because have you ever had that happen? Like something glitches out and then you just kind of like, you're not even thinking and you just like.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And, I remember like grief brain after my mom died. It's a real thing. And I mean, it got to the point where I was exhausted, like 2 months into this. Every day you lose your cell phone and your keys at least like 4 times a day. And, you just get to this point where you're like, you break down and you just sob because you can't go looking for your keys or your debit card or your cell phone one more time.
Have you ever lost your phone and you were on it?
Yes. Maybe I answered that a little too quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, I did that one time. I remember one time I was looking for my phone and I was on it. I was talking to my grandma. This was years ago. And
did you say out loud, where's my phone?
No.
Because that's what happened to me. And believe me, it was humbling.
I didn't do that, but I was looking everywhere for my phone, talking to my grandma.
Yeah.
And I was on the phone. Anyway.
Yeah.
And that was a long time ago, folks.
But did you have it like shoved under your ear?
Mm-hmm.
See, because that's why I thought it was gone, because I'm always holding it.
Right.
And so I was like digging in my trunk, and when I realized my phone wasn't in my hand, I thought, "It's the apocalypse! Like, where's my my phone is like glued to my hand." So that's what I was like, "Oh my gosh, where's my phone?" And then there's like this dead silence on the other end, and I'm like, "Never mind."
Yes, folks, this is the
Yep.
Through the Black Show. Welcome, 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 guys. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for giving us a thumbs up, sharing all that stuff that you do. It means the world to us. Vic, we are seeing new people come aboard the Through
I
the Black
know.
cruise
I
ship
love
every
it.
week.
I love it.
And they get on board and they just set sail with us. I don't know why they do, but they do. And some people keep coming back, and we appreciate that. We had a little starter video there before we went live, and I appreciate the passion of this person. I don't even know who it was, of just expressing their frustration of all of these crazy things that the media wants to report about and jump all over.
Yeah.
But here's an issue that needs to be exposed, and
Yeah.
it's complete silence, similar to whatever happened to the list, the Ghislaine Maxwell list.
Right.
You
The
know,
flight logs.
right?
Yep. Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So
Whatever happened to Ghislaine
yeah,
Maxwell, period,
and obviously, maybe some people heard about the big interview with Kanye Ye West over the weekend, and very interesting, things said there. But there are a lot of other things going on that need reporting more than this sensationalized, ridiculous interview story goofiness. Okay. People are more upset about what he said than the things that we know about that are going on, the abuse of children. And you know what? Despite all the crazy things he said, he did advocate for the stopping of child pedophilia over and over and over again. But nobody wants to talk about that part. So
Yeah, right. Yeah. Nope. Yeah, it's crazy. I did appreciate what that guy was saying, and especially, we're going back into, like he said, canceling things that happened 30, 40 years ago, banning books that were written, 75, 80 years ago, all this kind of stuff where all these rules weren't even in place, right? And yeah, it's just it's getting way, way, way out of hand. And I think it's only going to get worse. California bill, etc.
yes. Well, very interesting. And you sent that over. I think I saw that as well. And let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah. Yep. So this California bill, I can't remember what it is, like 29, yeah, whatever. But anyway, so there's a lot of sensationalized, stuff out there, like the Bible will be banned in the United States, et cetera, et cetera. So basically what the bill says, the bill doesn't come flat out and say it's illegal to buy or sell or purchase or read a Bible, but these bills never do say it. Let's see. Oh, 29. Oh, I got the 29 right. I can't believe it. 2943. And so what the bill actually is saying, so it's talking about hate speech specifically towards a particular group of people, and anything that is speaking against this particular belief system, you can't sell any product or service that speaks against this life. So it doesn't flat out say you can't, sell a Bible, but obviously if the Bible speaks out against that, that's going to fall under the goods and services. And so one thing to just know about these bills is a lot of times these bills that end up being a lot of trouble for us 10, 15 years down the line, they start out very innocent sounding. So a lot of the hate speech, anti-biblical, anti-Christian kind of things that we're seeing today is a result of what was originally an anti-bullying bill. Well, who's gonna go against an anti-bullying bill, right? And the comprehensive sex education bill that passed in almost all 50 states that was just a little bit of language in the middle of like a 200+ page omnibus bill on education. So, the average person's not going to sit and read all 250 pages and figure out that, things are going to be taught to their preschooler that they don't want taught to their preschooler. So we have to just keep our eyes on these sorts of bills, because California does tend to be the bellwether state. What happens there does tend to spread eventually. And even though they're not flat out saying, owning or selling or reading a Bible is illegal, the language is nebulous enough that depending on how nefarious the leadership continues to get in this country, they could certainly use that bill against us if and when they choose.
So Vic, so technically you have a book that's not legal in California now.
Correct.
So yeah, very interesting. Wow.
So I'll just give it away in California.
Yeah. Well, in related news, I saw this headline: Vladimir Putin signed a bill or signed something into law where you're not allowed to advertise for this alphabet group over in the motherland of Russia.
Oh, interesting.
So they're actually going in the other direction than California is.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Wow. What a paradigm shift from when we were kids.
Yeah. Here we go. Putin signs law expanding Russia's rules against LGBT propaganda.
Interesting.
What an evil man. What an evil man. That's all I got to say.
Full of hatred.
Yes. Anyway, folks, yeah, we're just reporting. You go check it out yourself. Lots of stuff there to jump into. Vic, we're going to talk about piggybacking a little bit, but there's another news. I don't know how current this is, but there's another story that that I want to talk about tonight that I thought is relevant, and this is just kind of a bonus thing that we're going to throw in there, and we're going to be talking about piggybacking a little bit. But here's a story of a pastor who committed suicide a few years ago. Back, I think it was 2018. Very, very sad story. And there was something. There's a part of the story that kind of caught our attention. And I want to read a little bit of this and talk about it just for a few minutes. So, it says, before Pastor Andrew Stokekline's suicide, widow reveals he was haunted by dark presence. So, and again, I don't even know what denomination this guy preached in or whatever. So let's jump in here. It says 2 weeks before Pastor Andrew Stokekline died after a suicide attempt inside Inland Hills Church in Chino, California, August 2018, he and his dutiful wife, Kayla, revealed to his congregation he was battling anxiety, depression, and had taken time off of work to get better. After starting down the terror of mental illness that had only months earlier sent him to the emergency room with a panic attack that had spiraled out of control, Andrew made a defiantly optimistic return to the pulpit. He took over after his father's death from cancer in 2015. It was a fragile triumph that Kayla seemed reserved about, even as she publicly supported her husband. So I want to skip down here. Let's go down to another. I'm looking for the part here because I want to see. Okay, here we go. Yeah. So she wrote a book about this, and I think this is kind of interesting here, what she was saying, and it makes me wonder about this, Vic. We're going to talk about this. In her first book, published 2 years after her husband's death during the height of the pandemic in September 2020, Kayla revealed that years before her husband's mental health began a swift, unrelenting decline and accumulated with suicide in 2018. She discovered he was being haunted by a dark presence he called Creature. The initial discovery she revealed in Fear Gone Wild, a story of mental illness, suicide, and hope through loss, came in 2011 as they celebrated their first anniversary with one night away at the Langham Hotel in downtown Pasadena, California. Their anniversary celebration was around the same time that Andrew's father was diagnosed with aggressive acute lymphoblastic leukemia. They were young and giddy and full of anticipation for a special night together, Kayla recalled. It was picture perfect. We were madly in love, crazy about each other, and the night kept getting better. After dinner that night, Andrew went to take a shower. Kayla was passing time watching TV when she heard a noise coming from the bathroom, and she soon realized Andrew crying. I rushed to the bathroom, pulled back the shower curtain, and there he was on the floor of the shower, curled up into the fetal position, shaking, terrified, and crying hysterically, she wrote. When he finally calmed down enough to talk, he described in detail an encounter he had with a dark presence he called Creature. So let's stop. We're going to come back to this, but let's talk about this for a minute. Yeah. This is sad. This is real sad. Mm-hmm. And from the stuff we're getting ready to read, and we're not going to read this whole thing. It's a pretty long article. We're not going to read it straight through. It seems like they recognize this as spiritual warfare and they began to do battle against it. Mm-hmm. Okay. They were versed, somewhat on how to deal with this. What did you think? You read the article, Vic.
Yeah, I did. First of all, I just want to acknowledge that, for this woman to lose her husband in such a tragic way, this entire church lost their pastor. He was a young guy. What was he, like 30? Yeah. And his mother lost her husband and son within 3 years of each other. So, sometimes it's easy to get on a show like this and talk about articles in a vacuum, but like these are real brothers and sisters in the Christian family. And I can't even imagine this. So, but oh my gosh, Tom, there's just so many directions I can go with this just because, I have the background of people write me letters. So I know that thousands of people, tens of thousands of people are going through stuff like this and have
Vic,
their whole
life.
Let me
interrupt. How many pastors?
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I can't imagine what they're going through. So
I can only imagine. And so, when I read the article, it was clearly written through the eyes of a woman who was experiencing this for the first time with her husband and they were both confused. They would call it spiritual warfare. They would call it mental illness. They would call it like just stress, anxiety, depression. But so when you're just kind of getting this for the first time in a vacuum and trying to figure it out in real time, whereas from my perspective, it's like, there's nothing out of the ordinary about this guy's story at all. Now, the suicide aspect of it might be out of the ordinary because this stuff doesn't always drive people all the way to the edge, but a lot of times it does, we just don't hear about it. And so Tom, I just think this stuff is way more common than we think. And so we've got this DSM manual out there that's trying to just explain all of this away. And it's all like brain chemicals and dopamine levels, and it's mental illness and it's genetics and it's all this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, if you're under intense spiritual warfare for prolonged periods of time and you're under fierce attack, that will drive you insane. Like it literally will. You will lose your mind. Mm-hmm. You will. And so
Vic, I bring this up at conferences all the time. I ask the people, hey, have you felt like you're going to lose your mind in the last 2 years? Many hands go up. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you again. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, it's a which came first, the chicken or the egg sort of a scenario. Does the mental illness lead people to then suddenly think that they're hallucinating and seeing creatures? Or is the spiritual warfare where they really are seeing visualizations of these demonic presences manifesting, leading them to the mental instability and the mental illness? And so I really feel for this family that it just had to go to this extreme. And it does make me wonder, Tom, this is the big question. And I think we've all been asking questions similar to this in the last year. And that is, if you have knowledge of spiritual warfare and you're properly identifying what's happening to you as a spiritual attack, and you're praying and you have the support of a whole church and you have elder boards praying over you and everything, what is the breakdown there? What was it about this story where there wasn't a deliverance?
You know what? Yeah, I wondered that too. And I think, this could be a combination of things. We talked a bit before we went on air, like the spiritual attack can cause, a mental breakdown, emotional breakdown. And everybody else around you, your family, the world, the church, whoever, they view you as going crazy. They view you as losing your mind and being mentally ill. It could be, man, the enemy he loves this vulnerability. My first question is, what was the door, okay, that opened up that allowed this thing to come in, okay?
Yeah.
Was it sent from somebody else? Or did he open up a door? Was something done to him? Okay. For me personally, it was, and I'll talk about this tomorrow night. It was something that was happening in my home, okay, that somebody else was doing, opening up doors, and it followed me for decades, okay? Over 2.5 decades, something like that. So anyway, what was the door? I don't know. I believe this guy was experiencing something and he was afraid of it, but where's the authority at? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. I also thought it was interesting, Tom, that the first manifestation of this was in a hotel room. And it's not that this guy wasn't under a lot of pressure and he was still in grief. He had lost his father. So I know a lot of things happened to me in the spiritual warfare department after my mom died. You're very, very vulnerable when you're in grief. And if you have a stressful job on top of it, oh my goodness. So it's not that he didn't have the things in place in his life that would have made him vulnerable, but it's always interesting to me, the rule of first mention. Okay, the first time this happened was in a hotel room. And so it makes you wonder if there was something there that was waiting for someone vulnerable so that they could attach.
Yeah. No, that's a good point, Vic. Or again, this is the first mention, but was this something that had been around before? Now, this is the first time that she recognized it, I think. But I think he alluded to this had happened before. This thing was in his life. But maybe this is the first place that it showed up. And yeah, I mean, this is something that we've talked about, hotel rooms. I try to make it a practice that I pray over a hotel room or any place that I stay, because I don't know what kind of sin has taken place in this room before, right? And it could be anything. It doesn't matter. Sin opens up the door, okay? It could have been something obvious like sexual sin, or it could have been somebody practicing something, any kind of sin. It doesn't matter. You are invoking a demon, whether you want to admit it or not. And hotel rooms are used over and over and over, thousands and thousands of times. So if nobody kicks it out, and then even if it does, it can come back after the person left, So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. Folks, we're speculating about a lot of stuff, but the things that we're talking about are real things, okay? We're not saying this is what this is not what happened, and we're not criticizing the wife or, whoever. I'm confident that they were doing the best they could, and if they thought that they could have did anything more, they would have, okay? So, anyway... Yeah. Regardless, it's a sad situation. Yeah, we need to talk about authority, but let's read a little bit more here, okay?
Okay.
So, and I think this is the Christian Post. It says, I stopped rubbing his back, full of confusion and fear. I sat on the cold tile floor, unsure what to do next. I began to look around the room. I didn't see any creature. What do you mean, a creature? Andrew, what are you talking about? There isn't anything in the shower. Excuse me, you were the only one in here. I don't understand, she wrote. He started crying again and shaking. I wasn't helping. I was making it worse. So I did the only thing I knew to do. I prayed. God, I don't know what's going on, but I pray. This is a good prayer, guys. I pray your presence would overwhelm this room right now. Whatever Andrew saw, I pray in the name of Jesus for it to leave. It has no power here in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. What a great prayer. What a great prayer.
Yeah.
Okay. I turned off the shower, grabbed a towel from the counter, and slowly helped Andrew stand to his feet. I carefully wrapped the towel around him and held his body close to mine as we walked toward the bed. Are you okay? What do you need? What can I do for you? He pulled the covers up over his body, closed his eyes, took a long, deep breath, and then opened them again. I'm okay. That was really scary. I'm still confused, but I feel better. Thank you for praying for me. That really helped. What was supposed to be a night to remember had quickly turned into a night I hoped I would forget. So again, this is still the first night here. He's indicating that the prayer helped him. Okay. But he was really shaken. And shaken so much that it totally ruined their whole anniversary time, right?
Yeah.
This is way out of the ordinary. You know what I'm saying? For anything like for anything like this to derail. But this guy, I believe, saw something that shook him. Okay, that shook him to the core. Yep. And probably shook his faith, maybe. Okay. Vic, the loss of his father, okay, the vulnerability there. Pastor Sean talked a little bit recently about the exploitation of grief, I think, something like that. And I don't think he talked about it in this specific way, but this is another angle that we can look at, right? So, so much pressure. You know, I know of a pastor, and Vic, this is an example. I'm sure this is going on all across the country. Okay. I know of a pastor. Matter of fact, I passed him on the road this morning that during the lockdown times, this guy was doing double time. He was doing all this extra work. He was trying to hold his church together. His church was falling apart. He was trying to make all the right decisions. I think he made a lot of horrible decisions personally, and I'm not picking on the guy. I wouldn't want I wouldn't want that job. But he came to a point where he is like, okay, I got to get out of here. And the result was he took a leave. He took a month off, and then he relocated to another church. And the plan is he's going to be there for however many months, and then they'll decide if he's coming back. But this church is now without a pastor or leadership. Okay. And it came from a lot of things. Okay. But him being overworked was one. So, anyway, your comments.
Yeah. She talks a lot in the article about how the structure of the megachurch is not helpful, especially to young pastors or pastors without a lot of corporate leadership experience. Because like the role of a mega church pastor, it's not like in the old days where you pastored a little flock and you knew everybody in the church and you did a sermon, and that you have to know a lot of you basically have to know how to run a corporation to be the head of a church now. And she talked about how there was an elder board there in place, but the pastor is like the CEO. They get the final say in everything, and he was young and he was inexperienced. And so she was kind of talking about how the corporate structure of the church was partially what led, in her estimation, to this breakdown, because he was in way over his head. And she also talked a lot about it wasn't just this creature appearing, but there was a pretty significant amount of anxiety and depression that went along with that. So, yeah, I mean,
Vic, here's the thing. There's nobody above this, okay? There's nobody above this. I'm not going to mention any names, but I know of some people that if I were to mention their names, people would be shocked that they struggled with suicidal thoughts. Okay. I know a pastor who was a mentor to me over 30 years ago, and just an amazing example, amazing just teacher, preacher. And it's been a little less than 10 years ago now, he committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
I think the story with him is he was in just this crazy pain, and it rocked this town. It rocked people that knew him, and we're like, what? Not so and so. This can't be true. Not him. Not him. He would never do this. This guy, this guy was a rock.
Yeah.
He was a rock.
Yeah.
And it just blew people away.
Yeah. It's kind of scary, Tom. I had a pastor once that would always talk about, he would always ask the congregation, like, pray that I end well, pray that I run the race strong to like the very, very end. And he would give examples of people who like were great preachers and then they kind of like fell apart at the very end. And, it's like the enemy waits for these opportune times. And I remember reading after, I might be getting his name wrong, but was it David Wilkerson? Was he the Cross and the Switchblade guy who had the big church? And I mean, this guy was amazing and wrote books. And obviously that testimony, the Cross and Switchblade, amazing. This guy had courage and, had this big church. And I mean, I've heard his sermons. I mean, clearly man of God. And when he died in a pretty horrific car wreck, I think.
Yeah.
But there was this sort of unknown, there was a lot of kind of controversy. There was a lot of people close to him that were not 100% sure if it was a car wreck or if it was suicide, because his journal was full of all of this stuff about depression. And he was sort of, what's the word I'm trying to think of? He had grown like very discouraged just with the state of the world and how everything was. And so I don't know, Tom, but I just know that I think that the enemy knows the most opportune time in all of our lives. Now, for some of us, it's when we're young. For some of us, it's when we're in grief or when we are old. And I mean, just look at all the kings of Judah and Israel who had like these magnificent reigns and then they blew it, and that's like my biggest fear, Tom. And I pray all the time, like, God, just please take me home before I spend 50, 60, 75 years, like plugging away at life and then just blowing it. I mean, that's a real fear of mine.
Vic, let's take this conversation, stop it, and then replace it with sexual sin, with an affair.
Yeah.
Okay. It's real. It's real. And the pressure that these pastors, you know what I'm saying? Are under. And it could, the enemy is so tricky. You know what I'm saying? And somebody can be in a situation where they have walked out power and strength and have a second of just weakness and make the biggest mistake, just a second, you know what I'm saying? Of a bad decision. A few years ago, after I made the film Detestable, and I haven't talked about this recently, but I've shared a lot about it in the past. I was my family was under attack. Okay. And it was ongoing and it was a struggle for a while. And, it was difficult. The pressure was real. And I remember, just basically hearing the voices or the thoughts, not necessarily hearing the voices, but the thoughts would come into my head. If you were dead, you wouldn't be feeling all this pressure. Now,
Mm.
that was not from me, but it was a temptation from the enemy. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying?
Yep.
And I kind of laughed it off. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. I have no desire, to end my life. I don't, even if I was suicidal, I wouldn't have the guts to do it. I don't even like killing mice in the mice trap, but hey, I do anyway, because it's me against them. I'm up 6-0. How many of me they killed? 0.
0.
I've killed 6 of them. So anyway, but the enemy will try anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're not prone to that type of sin. What
Yeah.
I'm saying? He
He'll
might
throw it
say,
out there.
hey, why don't you know what could take the edge off of this? Go get a shot of this. Get a shot of
Yeah.
whiskey. Get a shot
Go
of
to the
tequila.
liquor store.
That happened to me before. I was driving down the road, and I'm on my way home, and it's like, hey, why don't you just make a left-hand turn here and run over here and just take the edge off,
Mm.
And that could open up a door in my life. And I know that was not coming from me. And I'm like, it's almost like I'm like, where's that coming from? Because that's not coming within, And now, don't get me wrong, I can come up with a lot of bad ideas on my own, okay? So, but anyway, this is real. The pressure is real, okay? And we cannot let our guard down.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to read a little bit more of this this article here. So yeah. So let's take a look here. I wish I could say that he never had another encounter with darkness, but I can't. Throughout our marriage, Andrew continued to be taunted relentlessly. Sometimes Andrew would tell me about it, but other times he wouldn't. Maybe he even felt like he couldn't. Maybe he didn't want to acknowledge it was real either. She wrote, he was burdened by a darkness difficult to fully understand. Every day, there is an invisible war raging all around us, a war between good and evil, darkness and light, and we live in the tension. As different people with different upbringings, we may have different understandings of darkness and demons, but I think most people agree there is evil in this world and it is truly dark. Over time, as Andrew's battle with depression and anxiety worsened, Kayla revealed his encounters with the darkness grew more frequent. The darkness continued to pursue Andrew relentlessly. He would often experience encounters with the darkness in his dreams. And here we go, Vic. And this became magnified during his battle with depression and anxiety. Throughout our last summer together, Andrew would often recount the terrifying dreams in detail to me, she wrote. Each time his eyes would open wide as he spoke, I could sense the fear in his voice and his eyes. There was a war raging inside his mind, and it wasn't just physical or chemical. It was also spiritual. It was a deadly combination of mental illness and spiritual warfare, and it was spiraling out of control. So anyway, this is heartbreaking, folks.
Yeah.
So, guys, I want to say something right now. And we're gonna talk about piggybacking because this goes perfectly into piggybacking, okay, Vic? This is real. Why are you watching this show right now? Why do you tune in to Through the Black? Why do you come to the conferences? Why do you read the books? I'm not trying to chastise anybody. I want to encourage you. Okay? I want to encourage anybody out there listening. And I've said this before, we can't do it all. Okay? And the people that are doing the most are the ones that want to do more. And I don't know who this is for, but I just want to encourage you. We need more help. We need more people to step up. We need more people to learn how to do deliverance, how to do freedom encounters, how to break these things right here. Man, if the right person would have been in there, and it seems like they were doing everything they could,
Mm.
you know. And they were dealing with a combination of things, and that's the way that it works. And God bless this woman. And man, it's just sad all the way around. We don't know the details. We don't know what the door was. We don't know what was going on with him mentally. We don't even know. I mean, we haven't even talked about things like diet, okay, and other things that play into this, okay. So many things right now, folks. Just like what Katie put up there. If you're struggling, reach out, okay. Reach out. Find somebody to pray with. I did that last night, and I called a friend and prayed with them. Just about, I kind of had a bad day Thursday, where I was just kind of bummed out the way where I was trying to help some other people go the way that I wanted it to, and I was discouraged for a couple days. Okay, then I get on the interwebs, and then somebody's talking smack, and then that has an effect, right? So, which is what we're going to go into right now. Okay, this is what we're talking about, piggybacking. But guys, I just before I forget, I want to say this. Okay, thank you for your prayers. Thank you for remembering us. We appreciate it so much, and we covet your prayers. Think about Vic. She's put out this book. This is going to touch the lives of thousands of people. Okay, and there's a price to pay for that. Okay, the enemy would love to do anything he could to stop Vicky from helping these people, from putting out more books, to try to trip her up, to make her lose credibility, anything like that. Okay, and then on top of that, then we have our own, just our human self-doubt, all that stuff. Okay, so guys, we're getting ready to do a conference in just a few months where we're hoping that about 200 people will show up, and those 200 people are going to leave equipped, and then they're going to help hundreds of people. So the pressure is on. Okay, I'm not trying to throw a pity party for us. Okay, but this is just a very humble, transparent request for prayer. We have an amazing prayer armory that prays for us. And I pray for my team. I pray for the listeners of this show. And I appreciate the people praying for us. But anyway, this is just a very humble request for prayer. If you guys want to say a prayer for us, remember us in prayer. And I hope you don't quit praying when the conference arrives, because then there's the backlash, right? Then there's the payment after that. So I know what a prayer burden is, and sometimes it's a heavy load to carry. Okay, some days more than ever, but I think it's a blessing. I think it's a blessing to have somebody to pray for. Okay, because that helps us stay in line. But I just want to mention that. Keep us in your prayers, and remember us. We're under a lot of pressure because of what we're doing. And and you know what? We're all in this together. We include you guys that are live, you guys in the archives, you guys that are going to be listening tomorrow and this week. We're doing this together. You're in this with us, okay? So we appreciate all of the fellowship and all the teamwork. But anyway, Vicky, I want to read something here real quick, okay? And then we're going to get into this. So this is Matthew chapter 16. Okay, verse 21. Oh, yeah. Hey, it's up here. Here we go. Forgot. From the time Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things from the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised the third day. Then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Far be it from you, Lord. This shall not happen to you." But he turned to Peter. He turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an offense to me, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." So, wow. This is pretty intense. So, Vic, here it says Peter went to Jesus and rebuked him. Okay. Um, and Jesus had to set him straight, but he used words that I think a lot of people, would think they're shocking. He said, "Get behind me, Satan." This is Peter.
Yeah.
This is the rock. This is the one, I have built my church upon this rock. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. And I mean, and I've heard different sermons on this, and I've heard people say, he's not calling Peter Satan, but that's what he's speaking is Satan's will. He's
Mhm.
acting now as a shill for Satan, so to speak. He's saying, because Satan's the one that wanted to keep him off that cross, but poor Peter, I mean, it probably made sense to Peter. He doesn't want his friend to go away. I mean, we speak things like that. Peter just probably did not understand the full weight at that point of who this guy was or what the grand plan was, but it is sobering, because I think a lot of us identify with Peter. He's the one that kind of screwed up a lot. So I think a lot of us feel a lot more like Peter than we do Paul or David most of the time. But, it kind of makes me wonder, okay, how many times have I opened my mouth and, I mean, if Jesus was walking around with me on a daily basis, how many times would he be saying that to me? How many times is what's going on in my head, what I want, really more the desire of the enemy than it is the will of God? And how short-sighted am I in the things that I desire?
Right. So Peter's intentions were good intentions.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't want this to happen to you. I love you. I care for you,
Yeah.
and he was dedicated to Jesus, but the enemy, okay, and of course Russ Dizdar was the one who probably, coined this phrase of piggybacking. The enemy came in off on top of Peter's words, okay, to try to, stop the plan, okay, the master's plan. And Jesus recognized it and said, "Get behind me, Satan."
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I never
yeah.
thought about this before, Tom. Satan attempted to persuade Jesus in the wilderness to give up his plan, right? Because he knew, hey, if he falls for this temptation, he won't fulfill his calling. He failed. And I wonder if what Satan's doing here is kind of like what we do when we're kids, where we go and we ask our mom for something and she says no. So then we try to go and get dad, and I wonder if what Satan was trying to do is, okay, you wouldn't be persuaded by me because I'm the enemy. So what if the temptation comes through the face of someone who you love and you trust, and who, I wonder if he was really just honestly trying to get Jesus, just, he was tempting him again, but using a softer tactic, so to speak.
Yeah. So have you ever had like an experience where somebody maybe not necessarily rebuked you, but gave you some kind of constructive criticism, or said something to you, or maybe corrected you on a Bible verse or something like that? That's happened to me before. And then you feel this oppression kind of come in, like a dark cloud. Okay. It's a real tangible, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's there.
Yeah. It can be, and it can come in different forms, like depending on where you're at. You can be embarrassed, like depending on who the person is or how they said it to you, or you can be ashamed, or you can, like, your pride can flare up. Like it can be an ego thing, like, or maybe they said it in front of a bunch of people, so now you look stupid. But yeah, then you go home and you think about it and you can't stop replaying it in your head. And then you're ascribing all sorts of motives and character qualities to that person as to why they said that and why they said it the way that they did. And pretty soon your whole day and your whole week can be like ruined. And it's all just based on this one comment that to the person who said it might be just something very innocuous.
Yeah. And I remember the first time it happened to me, I didn't know what hit me. I was teaching in church. This was years ago. And I got the brain fog. Somebody said something to me and they questioned something that I was pretty confident on, okay, that I was teaching. But I was real new at it, okay? And the kind of tone that they used, it just kind of, the enemy used their words, and I don't think that they were being evil when they did it, okay?
Yeah.
But it hit me right in the middle of that teaching, and I couldn't think straight after that. I went home that night. I got up the next day. I still felt the same way. I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I remember I was at work, and I was like, man, I cannot shake this. I went out to my car, got my phone, and called my grandpa. And this tells you how long ago it was, because my grandparents were still alive. And my grandma picked up the phone. I said, hey, I need to talk to grandpa. I didn't know what to do. You know, I was like, hey, I don't know what's going on. I got this dark feeling over me, and I can't shake it. And he immediately began to rebuke it and pray against it, and it left.
Wow.
And why couldn't I have done that? I didn't know what was going on. You know, that's how I was really young. I was really early in the teaching of Russ, really early. This would have been 2008 when this happened, I'm pretty sure. And 2008, 2009, I can't remember. Anyway, and I just got blindsided. I got hit with the brain fog. It's happened to me different times, and when it hits you, it's hard to identify it. That's why we're talking about it tonight. And when I was down in Kentucky the last time, teaching down in Louisville, it was actually Indiana, I said, this could be the most important thing that you learn, okay? Four different perspectives. So, and the reason that I put it in my notes the night before, because it happened to me the day before. And I recognized it. I knew what was going on. And I said, okay, we got to get this under control. I prayed against it, and I didn't allow it to affect me. And I used it as a teaching point, you know. But it happened to me again a couple days ago, and it took me about half a day to figure out what was going on. So, folks, I want you to kind of think about what we're saying here, okay? The enemy can use the words of other people, even people that you love, even well-meaning, caring people, okay? And they may not have any malice, any, you know, bad wishes against you. But what they say, the enemy can use that. He can come in and he can kind of supercharge that and use your own vulnerabilities and attack you in a way. Okay. So there's almost like there's a brief moment, okay, when somebody brings up something like this and the enemy is able to kind of fire a shot in there and get to you. Does that make sense, Vic?
Oh man, it makes so much sense. You know, I don't know if this is exactly the same thing as vain imaginations, but I know that I catch myself doing that all the time. Not as much as when I was young. Like when you're young and you've got youth and energy, and especially if you're female, it's really, really easy to take a lot of things that are being said to you wrong, you know, and depending on your life experiences, like if you were bullied a lot like me, or if you came from like a patriarchal family, for example, anytime like I know people who came from like domestic violence situations. So anytime a guy speaks, they're like overly defensive, you know, because we come with our own sort of proclivities. And so I think with me, I spent so many years trying to filter out like bullying comments that long after people weren't saying bullying things, I heard them that way. I heard them that way for many, many years. And so I do still struggle with that. You know, it's like the taking every thought captive. I think sometimes, you know, someone will say something to you, and depending on where you're at in that moment, I mean, yeah, I mean, it happens to me a lot more than I want to admit, and I think that I can talk myself out of it a lot more quickly now. But, Satan he's got really expert timing. Like, he knows when we're tired. He knows when we're in a vulnerable spot. And, um, the word now is kind of like triggered, but he just knows how to get you at the right time. And I've heard a lot of people talk about this, like, Leviathan spirit, and I'm not really into these made up things. Like, it doesn't mention anything about that specifically in the Bible, but it is this concept, and where everything that a person says it's like a twisting, but that you as the receiver, you can also have the Leviathan spirit if everything that someone's telling you gets twisted, what you hear it wrong, and I do think that we're somewhat culpable to be responsible with the things that we listen to. Like, everything that gets absorbed into our head, I think that speaking for myself, I can do a better job of evaluating the motives of who's saying things to me and why they said it that way. And it's so hard because, we'll hear, we all have these filters of kind of shame and guilt and everything that everything goes through. And I think sometimes it's really hard when other people are talking to us. I kind of wonder sometimes if we really, I don't want this to sound like depressing, but sometimes I wonder if, like, there's no way of knowing. Like, when I talk to you, I can tell you, like, a story, and there's no way of me of like checking my work. If you walk away, like, you might have laughed appropriately or responded appropriately, but there's no way of me ever knowing that you really understood exactly what I communicated, if that makes sense. So to try to figure out, I think a lot of people think that they're really good at reading people. A lot of Christians especially think they have this gift of discernment, and I know what he meant, and I know what he was saying, and I know what he was thinking. And I really don't think we as sinful human beings are really as good at that skill set as we think we are.
No, so yeah, well, I mean, I know what you mean. And I have experiences with people that try to kind of jump the gun and assume you're saying something and almost try to finish your sentences before they even know. And they're usually always wrong. But anyway, it is what it is. So, in the context of what we're talking about tonight with these pastors, can you imagine the piggybacking, the spiritual attack that they, go under through some well-meaning members of the congregation?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just heard so many ridiculous things where, people are attacking pastors, one time just because they didn't use proper English. You know what I'm saying? Folks, they would have a heyday here because, I make fun of myself. Between Pastor Sean and I, we can barely, function. I don't know how, you know what I'm saying? We struggle with the English language. But there are, you know what I'm saying? Pressures, of a pastor. We've been talking about that pastor tonight, but you don't have to be a pastor to deal with this. Just a, Mr. and Mrs. Christian America, going to church, going to work, wherever. And I think that this type of thing happens in the church more than it does the world. Okay.
Yeah.
And it does more damage in the church. I'm not really worried about what the world says. You know what I'm saying? For the most part, they can put me down. They can challenge me on scripture. They can, I don't care. I don't care. But when somebody, a brother or sister in Christ, and I'm not saying we shouldn't hold people accountable. You know what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is the enemy can use our accountability as a vulnerability for the other person.
Mm.
And I shudder to think about how many times it's been used for me, for me. And I never meant that. My wife and I, over the years, we've talked about this a lot. And there's been a lot of misunderstandings in our marriage over, the past, 15 plus years. And there's things that I've said that she really took the wrong way. And I'm like, whoa, okay. No, I didn't mean that. That's not even close.
Yeah.
And then there's things that she said that I took the wrong way. And I'm like, what is going on? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, from time to time over, 15, plus years of marriage, and this can happen. We, can misunderstand one another. Well, think about, and that's people that know each other pretty well, right? What about people that don't know each other? So we have to, we got to kind of jump in front of this. Vic, one of the things I tell people, and I share this with our team, and I tell them, like, I'll give you an example. When we went down to Texas, we had a bunch of team members that were going down there. And one of the first things I said is, hey, guys, don't take anything personal. Because the enemy's going to try to use this stuff to get us fighting against each other. And we're going there for a mission. Okay. So I'm trying to preempt these attacks. Okay. Sometimes I'm good at it. Sometimes I'm not. Okay. Obviously, the enemy, he hits us when we're not looking for it. Right.
Yeah.
So we should always be looking for it. That would be the good thing, if we were perfect, but we're not. But we try to think of these things. And our team that was going down to Texas, I had a meeting with them and I said, hey, guys, don't take anything personal. Okay. And that's what I tell people. And I tell my family members that, I sit my kids down and I said, hey, guys, this is what's going on. I tell my kids that I love you. This next month there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's things going on. And please don't take anything personal. I love you with all my heart. If I were to say anything offensive, or if I were to snap at you, or or anything, it's not about you. Okay. I'm under pressure from other areas, and sometimes you just kind of need a pressure release, right? A pressure valve.
Yeah.
And I'm apologizing ahead of time. And I do this after experience. I wish that I could have done this better with my older kids who are grown, because I, had a pressure valve and I released some things on them, and I had to apologize or after the fact. But now I apologize before the fact. Now, let me say this. God has really helped me. I used to struggle with getting, just kind of having rage. And I would get mad, and I've said this before, it's embarrassing, but I would get so mad I would slap the table. That's like the rage, okay? And I would slap the table so hard that my hand would sting. And then I would be like, God, take this from me. Take this from me. Because my two older boys knew how to push my buttons, right? And oh my gosh, they were so good at it. And I was like, okay, I got to do something. And that's how it would manifest, right? I'd be like, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So, guys,
Wow.
I don't like telling anybody this, but I do it for the benefit of those people that are listening, okay? Because I want you to know, one, that, hey, we're all a lot alike. And two, God can deliver you from that because he helped me, okay? One day I woke up and it was gone. And my kids could act the fool, and it did it like it wasn't working, like I had my fuse was so long And my wife, you know, I said this before, she's got a really long fuse. My fuse was longer than hers. And I found her because I wasn't like snapping. I found her snapping point, right? Because I was like, not bothering me anymore. I'm not going to act like that.
Oh,
So,
man. Oh,
but
man.
anyway, I don't know how we got down this rabbit trail. Folks, I really want to stress the importance of what we're talking about tonight from both points of view. Okay. One point of view, you're the victim. Somebody says something to you, somebody in your church, somebody in your family, well meaning, and then you feel this instant oppression. You feel this dark cloud over you. Okay. You need to say a prayer. You need to say, Lord, I ask that you would clear the air. I ask, Lord, that you would help me overcome this, rebuke the enemy, whatever he's trying to bring. I forgive this person, and I'm not going to allow this to affect me. I'm not going to allow this to get to me. I'm thinking of the scripture, you know, where Paul says, you know what, if there's anybody to forgive, we forgive them. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt of love. Okay. So forgiveness is a key in spiritual warfare. We see that. Okay. Don't forget, don't let the sun go down on your anger and give the devil a foothold. Okay. So there's forgiveness is real key in spiritual warfare. We don't want to hold a grudge against anybody. So folks, two ways I want you to keep this in mind. One, as you are on the receiving end, and then two, you could very well-meaning say something very constructive, okay? Let's pick on Colleen. She's not here tonight. Say somebody said something, you know, it's like, hey, Colleen, I noticed that, I don't know, something about your book or something, or I, you know, whatever. I don't agree with this, or I don't agree with that, or, you know, whatever. And that could be at the perfect time, you know what I'm saying, that the enemy uses that to come in and attack her. Okay. But here's a book, you know, that is being used to help. It's going to help thousands and thousands of people, right? And the same thing with They Only Come Out at Night, right? Why is it we only remember the bad thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't focus on, you know, the positive things, but, you know, we can have, Vic, we can have tons and tons of great feedback. Like, I had to quit going and reading the reviews of my film because I've got some bad ones, okay, on, you know, certain areas. So I had to quit reading them because I was like, oh, dude, what the heck? But I have tons of great reviews, tons of people saying, man, this movie changed my life. This movie did this. This movie inspired me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You did this, you know, over and over. And then one bad review, you know, hey, you suck, you know, whatever it is. And that's the one that we're worried about, right?
I know. You know, one of the things, this is funny, when I had the initial phone call and I knew that the book was going to get published, I hadn't written one word of it. The very first thing that came into my head was, oh, I don't know if I'm ready for this, because, you know, the church is so critical and this is such a controversial topic. And I thought, I'm going to be like slammed with a bunch of know-it-alls and, you know, sticks up the butt talking, you know, and everybody who knows more than me and mocking me and saying, why aren't you preaching the gospel instead of talking about this stuff? And I was gripped with fear, and like I really had to pray over that anxiety. And I talked to a friend and she's like, you got to get a prayer team put together, which I did. And I basically prayed for 3 years in preparation for when the book came out. And I prayed and I just said, God, give me a thick skin. Because the way I had always dealt with criticism in the past was I would completely disassociate from it. So just anytime it came into my mind, I would just be like, la, 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 I can't, you know, I would disassociate from it. And that's not healthy either. And so, you know, I had a prayer team and me praying for 3 years, like, give me a thick skin. And let me tell you, even if the book had never come out, it was the best prayer I ever prayed. I have never felt better in my life than in the last few years, because the answer to prayer doesn't just affect reading comments about the book. It affects me on my normal life. You know, when you got the snarky little comments, or you've got the people who are saying things, or you've got miserable, broken, unhappy people who are saying things, but it's really out of the overflow of their own misery. It really doesn't have to do with you. And it is just so wonderful not having to disassociate, not having to be in denial, not having to pretend like, oh, I thought that was funny. Oh, is that an insult? You know, you don't have to be dishonest with yourself or other people, you know, with like whether or not it hurt or not. When something does hurt, you're just like, you bring it to the Lord. You say, I'm taking this thought captive. Like, man, they could have said that in a nicer way, but I'm letting it go. And because having a thick skin doesn't mean nothing ever hurts you again. It means that you take the thought captive, you know how to deal with it, you know to set it at the throne. And I mean, it's just something, whether you're on a YouTube show or doing a film or writing a book, it's just one of the best prayers I ever prayed. There was so much freedom in not having to take offense at everything that everybody says, you know. And it's one thing if you've got narcissistic, mean people in your life who really, they're saying mean things and they do mean it that way. Like, that's a different thing. But when you're dealing with people who you know love you, and you know that they probably didn't mean that to hurt you, and it's your own brain going crazy, there's nothing wrong with choosing an appropriate time and going to that person and saying, remember when you said that? This is like, that really hurt my feelings. And because I guarantee you 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, what? Oh my gosh, no, that is not what I meant. And so, like, give them the opportunity in the right context, you know, give them an opportunity to let you off the hook. You know what I mean? And I've done that before in my life, where instead of just walking off, you know, feeling sorry for myself and licking my wounds, I'll go back to the person a couple days later and say, like, you remember when you said that? Like, man, that really hurt my feelings. And just seeing their face, like, what? Like, just that right there starts the healing process, because you can tell all over their face that they're mortified that they hurt you. And so it's always good if you're dealing with someone who you know probably didn't mean it that way. I mean, I feel like we've kind of lost the ability in this country to just talk about things. Like, we just like absorb them, and then we walk away with our feelings hurt, and we don't ever give that person an opportunity to defend themselves. And sometimes it even affects and ruins and destroys friendships, because people hold this grudge and then it never gets fixed. And I just think that if it's a relationship that's worth cherishing, it's okay to go to someone and say, that hurt my feelings. It's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, Vic, that, you know, that's like a personal rule with me, is to not take anything personally. Like, when I go into a restaurant and I'm not getting the best service, okay, I could honestly care less. I do not know what this man or this woman is going through. I don't think they owe me. They need to wait on me like a king, you know. I don't think anything of it, honestly, and I don't I don't allow that affect the way that I tip them. You know, I honestly don't, because who knows what they're going through? Who knows what they're dealing with? Okay. I'm assuming that it could be, you know what I'm saying? Something pretty intense. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
and
go ahead.
I was going to say, holding on to all that too, and I'm speaking from experience here, because when I was young, it was almost like I had to find offense with, I was in a like self-pity party for like a long time. So even if someone was being nice to me, it was almost like I went out of my way to try to twist it in my mind so that I could feel sorry for myself. You know, I just have to tell you, that is an exhausting place to live. And it affects your physical health. It affects your relationships. It affects your own mind. I mean, I legitimately, by the time I was 19 years old, I remember going to my cousin, because she was extroverted and gregarious and had a lot of friends. And I remember telling her, I am sick of being around myself. That's like what I told her. I said, I'm sick of being around myself. I'm not a nice person. I don't like who I am. I don't know how to fix this. And she gave me some little pieces of advice on like how to be, like, you know, be friendly to other people. And I was like, I can't do that. Because to me, it was like dropping my protective armor. Like, I can't let people know that I'm that, you know, like, I thought that being sweet and kind would make me look weak and I get picked on more. So it was very difficult for me at 19 to start making those changes. But by 19, I hated being around myself because
Vic,
I couldn't take it anymore. I had to change.
I think what you're saying is so key, and there's so much psychology and emotion that we're not really touching on. Okay, and the main thing we're trying to teach about this, tonight is how the devil, exploits our moment of weakness. Okay,
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
exploits that moment where somebody says something. Okay, that he's there, he's witnessing. Okay. And they're like, okay. And you know what? Sometimes the person can be even inspired, okay, by the demonic to say those things.
Mm.
Okay. Not always. It doesn't mean the person's possessed. Okay. And guys, have we ever said something like, man, I can't believe that came out of my mouth? Like, I've said things to my family before, like, I don't know why I just said that.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. So there's that. But another thing that we haven't talked about is the imprints that we have growing up, right?
Mm.
And the PTSD from our childhood, and how we have, we lean this way or that way when it comes to certain things. I mentioned that my wife and I are reading this book now called How We Love, and we are imprinted with a love style when we're younger. So what you were talking about right there was really powerful, about how you couldn't stand yourself because of the person that you turned into to defend yourself. And you're like, man, I am not a nice person.
Mm.
And you're like, somebody help me to do something that had to have been hard. Can you just expand on that a little bit? How did you do that?
It was really hard, but I got to the point where I had no choice because I was so miserable. And I thought, I'm 19 years old. I got decades ahead of me, and it was really hard. I remember my cousin telling me, like, I was so afraid to just even be nice to guys because I was afraid that they would interpret that I liked them. And so then they would have to be abusively horrible to me because they wouldn't want anyone thinking that I liked them. And so I had this thing where I couldn't even be kind to a guy, and I worked with a lot of guys. And so my cousin was like, just, say to a guy tomorrow that you like his shirt. And I'm like, no way. She's like, smile like at him and just say, hey, I like your shirt. And Tom, I think it took me years to work up my courage to do that because I had such a perception of myself. And my concept was that if anybody thought I wanted to be their friend or like them in any way, that they would immediately reject me and make sure everybody knew, like, hey, this isn't my idea. And it was such a deep spirit of rejection. And that was kind of the root of all of it. And you don't get over that overnight, and you don't get over that by yourself. And it was just really just one horribly painful baby step at a time, but having to just trust, like, this is the way God made me. He's sovereign. Like, he didn't make a mistake. Like, this is the way he made me. This was his plan. And I have to believe him. I have to trust him. And because it affected my relationship with the Lord too, it affected everything. There was just so much hopelessness in all of it. But I mean, I don't understand, Tom, how, well, I guess I do. There's a lot of people out there that they can't take it anymore, and they numb themselves with things. And I understand that. And I never went that route. But if I was going to numb myself from anything, it wouldn't have been the pain. It was literally that I couldn't stand being around myself anymore. Everything out of my mouth was sarcastic. Everything was snarky. I had to reject everyone before they could reject me. And I couldn't stop myself. I was not a fun person to be around. And when I was all by myself, which was often, I didn't even like being around this person. And it took decades, Tom. It took years. You guys wouldn't even recognize me if you knew me when I was that age.
I've definitely had seasons in my life where I had just drifted so far from the good character. You know what I'm saying? And I had these attitudes, after going through a divorce. You know what I'm saying? I had these attitudes about relationships, and I was cynical about them. And I had to kind of, I don't know, relearn. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
And
do.
because I made so many bad decisions, and the consequences of my bad decisions was bad treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
Or, a bad decision, could mean anything. So I assumed that nobody was trustworthy, and it was hard to learn to trust again, and
Yeah.
it's, I don't want to get into too much personal stuff, but some damage was done by other people. And then I think I compounded the damage even more. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
I made it even worse. I remember the exact spot I was. I could take you to it, where this was after my divorce, and I felt, Vicky, I felt the Lord. This is my experience. I felt the Lord try to comfort me. Just like you would, just put your hand on the shoulder of a friend and try to heal me. And I was like, basically like, get away from me. Get away from me. Just kind of like, when a child that's hurt, you try to comfort them, and they're like, don't touch it. Don't touch it, And that was my attitude. And I'm ashamed to say that, but I'm just being honest,
Yeah.
And praise God. Thank you, God, for your perfect patience and your perfect love for me. And you know what? God didn't take it personal when I did that to him, And he was a gentleman. He was like, okay, I'm not gonna try and force anything on you that you don't want, And I'm haunted. I am haunted by that memory of God trying to love on me, and I just basically told him to get lost, like get away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's interesting how much credit we give to the enemy. Because like when I really look at it, life was good up to 5th grade. I had friends and stuff up to 5th grade. 6th grade was really difficult. 6th and 7th grade, maybe. By 8th grade, the devil like walked away. He like flipped a self-destruct button in me and walked away and never touched me again. Basically, like the damage that was wreaked from that point forward was like all like yours truly. Like I just became this like it was just all self-destruction.
Vic, that's what he does. He can, basically set things in motion and walk away.
Yeah.
And leave us to our, our own devices.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, folks, I'm just telling you, if there's anything between you or anybody else, you know what? If the Lord lays it on your heart and you think that you've offended somebody, if you hurt somebody, I say this to my family. I say this to my wife, just in case, because you don't know, I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure everything's cool, but and just in case it's not, I want to let you know, because my wife struggles with communication. Okay. And she, if I did something wrong, it would be very difficult for her to tell me. Sometimes I'll go to her and I'll be like, hey, okay, I got a list here. Did I do this wrong? Just shake your head, yes or no. Here's another one. And I'll go down a list. It seems kind of funny, and I don't like sharing some of this personal stuff. I'm not trying to make fun of her, but I'm just using an example, and I think other people can identify. You know what I'm saying with what I'm saying. So anyway, folks, if there's anything, between you and somebody else, or if you even think that you've done something, go to them and just share with them your true intentions, that you did not mean to offend them.
Yeah.
And if somebody's done something to you, don't take it personal. You don't know what they were going through, and you don't know the intentions. I'm telling you right now, for anybody out there, I would never intentionally, especially close friends and family, I would never want to hurt them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it on purpose, but I sure as heck would do it by accident, and I have done it by
Yeah.
accident before.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. And that's helped me before too. I've had situations in the past where, my feelings have really been hurt, or I've been insulted or whatever. And I thought, you know what? I know that person, and I know the relationship we have. And if they knew that what they said hurt me like that, they would die 1,000 deaths. They would feel so terrible. And so then it's easier to let go of it too. Cause like, I just think you worded that so well, Tom. Like, for the most part, normal, healthy individuals, we love our friends, we love our family. We all have bad moods. We get tired, we get snarky, we say things, when we're hangry or whatever. But other than that, we're not intentionally lashing out. And like, the last thing we want to do is ostracize ourselves from the very small group of people who are actually willing to associate with us.
You know what? And the closer you are, the more likely you are to hurt that person, because you
True.
feel safe.
Yep.
You're more likely to hurt a family member or a close friend.
It's so true. It's sad, but so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we could kind of go on about with this tonight. I hope people get the picture. There's a lot more to be said, and I don't know if we've done it justice, but I just want to encourage people. There's other scripture, just about, if there's anybody to forgive, don't let the sun go down on your anger. We mentioned don't let any debt remain outstanding except for the continuing debt of love. Just forgiveness. Okay. And this is taught in the Lord's Prayer of repentance. And if you have any problem with somebody, you go make that right before you make an offering at the altar, right? So a lot of stuff there, folks, and this is covered. And what we're talking about tonight is spiritual warfare. Forgiveness is spiritual warfare. Repentance is spiritual warfare. So and the enemy will exploit those things if we are not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's hard to put a bow on that. That was well said. But yeah, I do think that forgiveness is one of the most powerful weapons for turning a situation around, though. I mean, especially with when someone has hurt us. I think that the most powerful thing we can do that affects things behind the veil is, like you said, I'm not going to take this personally. I'm going to move on from this. I'm not going to let this be a defining moment for me that I'm going to wear this like a badge the rest of my life, because I do think that when we forgive other people, that I don't think that there's anything that the demon world hates more than a forgiving heart.
Yeah. Well, because we take a tool out of their pocket.
Mm.
Okay. And they have something they can use against us. They have something that they can use to build resentment in us, to inspire resentment. And when we let that go, it's like taking the tool right out of their hand, really.
Yeah, it's the foundation that they're going to build everything on. So if you wipe that foundation off, they've got nothing to build on.
Yes, yes. Folks, you see this shirt? I will fight for you. You can find that at the store at throughtheblack.com with our other Ezekiel 8 stuff. Thank you for supporting us there. And just picking up those shirts, the movies, the patches. Folks, check this out. We have a resist line that nobody else has, okay? You guys have been supporting that. That's our number one design. You've been supporting it for over probably 3 years now. We appreciate the support. We mention it because some of you guys don't know that we have it. Some of you guys are new. So we got some cool stuff. You know what? I was at the store yesterday, and the person that checked me out was a Satanist. And I turned around, just to make sure that they saw the back of my jacket. And just to let them know, hey, we're out here, okay? We're out here. But anyway, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. Tomorrow night, we're going to have another great conversation. It's going to be a great week. We will see you then. All right. Bye.